Good evening, everyone, and welcome in to the Pioneer Coaches Show, Episode 1, today September 10th of 2020. Pioneer fans, the Pioneer Coaches Show is a new weekly show that we're going to give our fans an inside look at Glenville State coaches, assistant coaches, administration, and our outstanding student athletes. Today, Thursday, and since the Pioneers were set to square off against Concord University in the season opener of the Pioneer football season this coming Saturday, I'm joined now by the head coach, Coach Kellar. Coach, thanks for sitting down and going over this first episode with us.
It's a different episode, that's for sure. As you said, normally we'd be preparing for a ball game right now. This is the first time in my coaching career I've guaranteed the AD that we won't lose on the opening day. So, it's a new experience for us all. It's different. We're trying to adapt and handle it as they say, play the ball where it lays. And I would much rather be preparing for Concord, that's for sure.
Before we really dive into the football side of things, 2020 is your second season at the helm here at Glenville State. And obviously you kind of hit on it already. Is this not the most difficult and uncertain time in your head coaching career that you can remember?
Yeah, it's unique. Normally you'll face some things, that come up that you have to deal with, but there's always something someone on your staff's been through it, or you could call a buddy around the college and, how did you handle this blitz, or how did you handle this kid getting hurt, or whatever it is. This is something that's unique to everybody. I mean, no one's ever went through this. I mean, this past Friday I was teasing one of my buddies. I said, I can't remember a Friday in the fall where there was not a game that I was going to, or a day that I was preparing for the next day. I mean, I cleaned gutters yesterday. I ain't done that before. It's totally a different time. But I mean, we're dealing with it, I think, with pretty good positive energy. I like the way the weight programs, taking off and where we're at with that. I like some of the things that we're doing skill development wise, and how we got to organize and how we're protecting the kids. And I like where we're at as far as a plan and how our kids are handling the plan and how our coaches are executing the plan. It's just, I wish we weren't. We all wish that we weren't doing this.
Last season, you guys went 7-4. Mm-hmm. You guys had some huge wins over Fairmont State, Frostburg State, and at the time, number 5 Notre Dame.
Yeah.
That was your first year, and a lot of people might not know that when you took over in the spring, I mean, you had about 35 to 40 guys left on that roster. Yeah. So with that being said, and now you're in your second year, looking back at that 2019 season, what grade would you give yourself and the team?
Well, I mean, having a winning record was huge because it propelled our recruiting. It helped our off-season program. Some of the things that you're preaching, a lot of those things are ideas, or they're ways that you're looking at things. And when you start winning, obviously people believe in them more, starting with your staff and your team, and works to the administration, to the school, and to the alumni. Just everyone starts believing a little bit more. But I mean, what we were preaching, we believed it totally. If we were 4-7 or 7-4, we'd have been exactly the same. The beauty of going 7-4 is exactly that. That it propels you forward. The negativity of it is everyone feels good. As a coach, you feel bad when your team feels bad, and you feel bad when your team feels good. So right now, we're constantly harping on. Remember what gave you those wins, how you went up there and beat Notre Dame, not the fact that you went up there and beat Notre Dame. Everyone in town's going to remember that. We got to remind them of it was the lifting, it was the game plan, it was the attention to detail, it was going to class, it was the process of the things you do to help you get those wins.
Looking now at 2020, you have a lot of last year's team returning this year, and we've already went over some of the newcomers in the recruiting class that you have coming in. But we're going to look at the offensive side of the ball, you being an offensive-oriented coach. First up, the wide receivers, Javon Butler might be, if not one of the best wide receivers in the MEC. He's a 3-year starter. Yeah. He's hauled in over 132 career receptions. He's got 2,088 yards. He's got 25 touchdown passes, and he's a 3-time All-MEC second-team wide receiver. What makes Javon, obviously you only got the one season last year with him, but what makes Javon so good? And more importantly, do you think when we're able to play, is he going to be able to capture that elusive first-team All-MEC honor that he's been after?
That's why I wanted to give you some motivation. 3 second teams, how about we get a first team? I think if you really look at our season last year, he got hurt in the Concord game, really on the screenplay at the end of the game. He tried to go West Liberty, and he wasn't himself, and we really struggled offensively. The following week, we played Fairmont State, and Javon wasn't in the game, and we were really inept offensively. And then if you really look at when we started to become our own, those wins you're talking talking about at the end of the season, really we're starting Wheeling and then obviously Notre Dame and Frostburg. I mean, it was Javon who kind of was the catalyst. We did some things different schematically. We kept him in the boundary, so we went 3-by-1. He was our X receiver, split him. When we went to 2-by-2 sets, he played the flanker position, which I think he feels more comfortable with. And our quarterbacks, because we were such a full field read team and some of the things we were doing, they felt more comfortable knowing he was near them. So I think that helped us offensively. I mean, he is he's the best returning receiver. We got some freshmen that we're really, really high on. Right now, Javon's job is to be the bell cow in that group and just show them what it's like to come to work every day and just compete and just be a steady guy. I mean, that's really what he is. You look out there, Javon's there, he's smooth. I mean, he doesn't run any faster, he doesn't run any slower. He's reliable. He does the little things right, and he plays hard. He's got some room for improvement, and like you said, so he could become a first-team All-League guy. I've coached some guys who are All-American. I've coached some guys who got NFL shots at that position, and Javon's got those kind of capabilities. It's just a matter of him staying healthy and putting it together for a season, and even upping it. As great as he is athletically, even upping it just a little bit more so he can reach those goals.
And, I would be remiss not to mention another, really came on late as a freshman, West Virginia kid, Caleb Wynn, who had the overtime touchdown catch against Notre Dame. Talk a little bit about him going into his sophomore campaign.
He's been great. We're doing skill development, and I asked Coach Farmer, who's good for you right now, and he said, well, Javon's obvious, but the guy is Caleb. So Caleb, same way, he's just a steady guy. We got the Vance kid from the same high school who's actually a little bit taller, maybe a little bit faster, but Caleb's just that guy who won't allow himself to get passed up in line. I mean, he goes hard. He struggled all spring. He had a little bit of a hip injury and struggled through weightlifting, kind of limped himself through. The time off probably really helped him because right now he looks really good out there running around. Because we're in shorts, they all look good, but Caleb was a really nice surprise for us a year ago. Small school guy from West Virginia, came in, worked hard, and I think what was the 5th, 6th, 7th play of the game against Notre Dame, we run a little trick play, and Caleb, I watched it just the other day on cutups, he set the guy out, slips him for a touchdown, and kind of really set the momentum for that game. I really believe we don't hit that play, we don't win that ball game.
Now let's look at the guys who's going to be throwing in the ball, the quarterbacks. Obviously, Tim Hetzel returned from last year. He played 10 games. He had 1,401 passing yards, counted for 8 TDs. Talk a little bit about Tim, what you're expecting him, and then let's also talk about some of the newcomers that's going to be pushing for some playing time.
Yeah. Tim's, you can see in the quarterback meetings a lot more relaxed, than he was a year ago. That experience, you just can't. There's just no way. There's only one way to do it, and that's to go through it. I mean, you can do all you can to prepare him. You put him all the situational stuff in practice you can, but that game experience is huge for him. And I think Tim knows that. I think he knows that. This kid could learn this stuff just as well as I can, but the game experience is going to help me, so I think that gives him a level of confidence. I noticed in skill development the other day, as I was coaching a point over here, I heard him tell one of the quarterbacks something that, just came off, our mouths many, many times, and I thought, well, that's good, good for him. He's maybe taking a little bit of a leadership role. We got good expectations for Tim, but by no stretch of the imagination is it a done deal for him. I mean, he's got to come to work every day. The kid who's really came along, who we redshirted last year, was Will Watkins. I mean, he's at a very, very good position physically right now. I mean, he's a very confident thrower. He looks great in shorts. The biggest thing with Will is he doesn't have that experience. He's got to go out and earn it. This is a unique deal because it looks like we're going to be able to do spring ball this fall, and we'll get him some experience then. And then the 5 games in the fall, in the spring, we'll see how those go. So we're high on Will and the direction he's coming, and then we signed a kid who we absolutely loved. I had him in camp 2 years ago when I was head coach at another place, and Corbin Pearson up at Jefferson. Very, very talented. Maybe the most naturally talented of them. I mean, if I ranked who's the best runner, I'd have one ranking. If I ranked who's the best passer, I'd rank another. But Corbin's like right at the top of each of those deals. But he's got some things that he's got to, overcome. He's getting a whole new vocabulary that we're trying to teach him at quarterback, a whole new way of doing things, fundamentals. We're putting him up under center, which is where we're going to be primarily a shotgun team, but we start everything from up under center. And I mean, just going over the snap the other day, he had his left hand up, and I said, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I never took one from under center before." I was like, "Well, we're going to start you like as a Pop Warner team here and teach you."
Speaking on that, how unique is that? Because in a regular season, you know, you guys, you get finished with spring ball. You know, most of the guys will go home for the 3 months of summer. They'll report back, which is really now a shortened fall camp from what I was used to, and I'm sure what you were used to. And then you jump right into games. Well, now you've got all this fall semester to evaluate, teach, to prepare for playing in that spring. You know, how unique is that?
Totally. I mean, and I keep reminding myself to go slow, you know, to work on, you know, how you get a snap, where you shoot the ball, how you pivot out. I mean, normally, like you said, we'd be talking about, you know, how to defeat Concord and how to make sure you're protected to throw against their blitz game, or how to attack their coverage, or what the run game checks are. And we're talking a little bit about that stuff, but right now we're really trying to boil this thing back to the fundamentals. And you know what, it's kind of funny, it's probably not the worst way to do it, because you got a bunch of freshmen who they probably need to learn that stuff before they go throw in the games anyway, you know. And even the guys who you redshirt, you're not, as much as you try to work with them, you're really focused on the ball game, you know. So this is unique. For me personally, we're over 50-some freshmen. It's probably the best way for us to teach it, you know, moving forward. We would not have this opportunity if we were playing ball games, that's for sure.
Diving back in personnel, tight ends. Didn't have a whole lot of tight ends last year on the team. Isaac Meyer was kind of that H-back type deal.
Hybrid,
He caught 27 passes for 312 yards. You know, obviously, you know, he's one that's proven for you all. But as I've seen you guys with recruiting, you guys have brought in some really beefy up that tight end position. Was that, you know, talk a little bit about those guys, and was that something that you and the staff really looked at and said, hey, we've got to be bigger at the tight end position and make that more of an emphasis in our offense?
Well, Isaac, like you said, is really probably more of a true H-back. He'd be better off, you know, when I watch him block in space, he does a pretty good job. When you ask him, you played it, to be that end man on the line, I mean, I think he weighed in at 225, which is kind of big for him. But he's still, you know, he's 6 foot. He played quarterback in high school. He takes the pass game like a duck to water. He feels comfortable as can be. He can read coverage. He's smart. But then you put him on that end guy, and you know, and sometimes it's just a little bit of physical mismatch. So we asked him to do some things last year that he's not great at. I think when he goes back to his more natural role, I think he's really got a chance of taking off. And like you said, we did. I mean, Dalton Westfall redshirted for us a year ago. He's 6'4.5", 250 right now. We've got the Johnson kid out of Virginia who's 6'6", 235. Adrian Dunstan's he's 6'6", 2. He's a little bit lighter, like a 238. You know, we got the Shamlin kid who's a 240-pound wrestler, about 235-pound wrestler, who's really probably more of a fullback, H-back type of kid. So we did beef up the position. It's a position for me personally that we've always been pretty good at. It reminds me a lot of when I first went to Cal. We signed Paul Butler and we had Des Green, and they were both. Des was a former quarterback who was about 6'5", 240, and Paul was 6'6", 235, and he left there about 255. He's with the Patriots now. I didn't see if he made the team or not, but he was with the Raiders a year ago on the practice squad stuff. So they remind me a lot of that group, like they were freshmen. You know, Ryan McCauley was kind of our Shamblin type kid, who's that H-back move guy, and that group grew each year together, you know, up there, and I'm hoping that we've duplicated that blueprint. You know, we're certainly off to the same start. Whether it can be the same finish, we'll see.
I chose GSC because when every school gave up on me after tearing my ACL, GSC was one that still actively recruited me. They brought me in, they treated me like family, and now I'm a 2-time champion.
So the reason I chose GSC is mainly because the community here. Now that's my 4th year here, I know everybody. I also know all my professors really well. We're all great friends even with our professors, and they help you every step of the way. So up to me, it's the community, the people.
Looking now at the running back position, the team's leading rusher, Mario Pender, he's done graduation. The two main returners last year, Seth Arnold, who rushed for 168 yards, and then Darnell Jackson, who rushed for 153 yards. You know, how important are those two guys in really establishing the ground attack that you guys want to?
Very. You know, Seth, I was talking yesterday to a friend that, you know, Seth is right now, if I had to play, probably going to be our starting tailback. But I'm not so sure that that's his best position. I mean, he could go play in the slot. He could be. I mean, he was an all-state linebacker. You know, catches the ball really, really well. Could be a fullback type kid for you. That's what we used him for primarily last year. So we're excited about Seth. Darnell is setting out this fall and come back in the spring. The way his graduation lands, we got like 3 kids that because of the uniqueness of this season,
Right.
we took that approach with. And Darnell, Darnell was great. He was a great running back at school down south a couple of years ago. Hopefully, he backed up Meyer last year. Hopefully, he could kind of come into his own this spring and take off into his senior year. We got a transfer, Zay Huff, who plays. He's a lot like Seth. The fact that he's half a receiver and half of a tailback. So he's probably as fast, maybe the fastest kid on the team. I believe he made some All-American teams a couple years ago. So we're excited about where Zay's at. And we brought in some really good kids. I mean, Javon Davidson from RCB, we redshirted last year. And right now, skill development, I mean, he looks great. Looks great in the weight room. I hope we can keep things going with him. Michael Ackpen, freshman out of Virginia, we're super excited about. Alfred Minger from Tallahassee, Florida is a really good running back who we're excited about. And so we'll see. I mean, you never have enough of those guys. I think every coach who's worth his salt signs a bunch of those guys because they can play multiple positions, and generally speaking, they're the high school's best player. And I remember one year at Cal, I was telling Coach Trickett this, I said, I was the OC, and I said, we got 5 tailbacks. What are we going to do with 5 tailbacks? So we had the leading rusher back. Brandon Lombardi was like 1,600 yards, 1,700 yards as a sophomore. And he gets hurt like in week 7, and Dane Williams goes for 1,200 yards in the last 7 games. We went 13-1, and we end up using all 5 of those running backs. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here, and we'll see how that goes as well.
Up front, offensive line, Ethan Ferguson, freshman, a year ago. He was the All-MEC honorable mention.
Yeah.
What do you expect from Ethan entering his sophomore campaign?
He had a great winter, working out. You could see his confidence grow. I mean, he went through, all the practices with Coach Trickett. He got thrown in there for 10 games. He played tackle some. He played guard some. We moved him around. And there, watched the cutups. There's times where you could tell he was a freshman holding on to his life in there and battling. But boy, he's really growing as a leader in the weight room. He's a quiet kid, so you can't tell it. But the fact that he shows up every day and works, I never have to worry about Ethan being on time. I never have to worry about his schooling. I never have to worry about him doing the right things. I mean, he's our kind of guy. I hope these freshmen, the Ian Pomeroys and the Brock Robies and the Liam Fultoniers, I hope they look at Ian, I hope they look at Ian and say, a year from now they could be more like Fergie in the fact that they're growing. He was a freshman, and this is what happened with him. Now look what he grew into, and Ethan, he really should be an all-league player for us this year. I hope, and he's certainly more than capable when he's putting in the work.
Some others up front, you've got senior center Josh McNeamer, 6'8" sophomore Jake Oliver, sophomore Hunter Kozak, and then a mid-year guy that came in last year, Joey Palmer.
Yeah.
Now, that's still a young group up front.
Certainly.
But how important is that young group? Not only did a lot of them get playing time, but a lot of them started all last year.
Yeah. So
how important is that to building on for this upcoming
season? Well,
it's
huge because I can see the maturity in that group from a confidence standpoint. And right now Coach Trickett's doing his skill development. He's doing the tackles, for their hour, and then he's taking the center guards for their hour. And my skill development's over, so I usually sit behind and watch it, or I go up in the stadium and watch his individual, which is a sight to see in and of itself. But the way McNeamer has kind of really taken over a leadership role with that group. When last year at this time he was trying to win a starting job,
right?
And now he's a leader, and to see those guys, the Fergies, the Olivers, the Kozaks, who know they went through games and what that consists of, and I think that's going to be a pretty good group going forward. I mean, the freshmen are a little bit taller, a little bit stronger. They're a little bit more physically gifted than some, not all those guys, but some of those guys. We only got one senior, Desmond Brock, and I think most of that group's we only have one junior, so that group's going to be together the next 2 or 3 years. There's 17, 18 of them who have stuck through the fires and come out of this. This should be a really good offensive line moving forward.
And how important is it that offensive line? You mentioned, Coach Trickett. He's seen it all.
Yeah. You're not going to trick him. You're going to trick them.
I mean, a national championship pedigree. One of the best, if not the best, offensive line coaches in college football of all time.
Yeah.
How those guys are getting hands-on experience from the best in the business, and how important to not just the offensive line but to your team is that.
Oh, it's critical. I know in the quarterback room they feel better about it. It's just we know that they're going to be prepared. You know, when we got beat a year ago, it was never like, oh, we didn't know what that stunt was, or we weren't prepared. It didn't happen. It was physically.
Right.
You know, sometimes we got prepared, and the only reason they were beat physically is not that they're not capable. They just weren't quite ready yet. They didn't have enough weight room time. They didn't have enough experience. You know, and we laugh. You know, the end's tight and the backer's loose, and we know that guy's coming, that guy's coming out, but you know, the guard tackle may not know that yet. Now moving forward, when I see his drill work and he gives them that look, they're making a call to say, hey, let's push that or handle that. And it's critical. I mean, if you really look at the great NFL teams, if you look at college football, I mean, and it's a cliche, but it's the truth. It really starts up front. You know, if you got a good offensive line, if you got a good defensive line, if you look at our scholarships and where we put our resources, those are the two primary positions that we went after. If you're good up front, the skill will kind of take care of itself, and that's hopefully the program that we're trying to. But plus, it gives you a toughness factor. It does a lot of things for you.
Yeah. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about the fall. 2020 has been postponed to the spring due to COVID.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about the evaluation process and working with the student athletes and the new guys. But overall, as a staff, what are you guys doing right now? Obviously some preparing, doing some evaluations, recruiting. Talk a little bit more in depth about that.
Well, I mean, recruiting is always going to be a top priority. I think we got a good list of high school kids, that we're on already. The biggest difference between where we're at now and where we're at a year ago is the problem we're having is the same problem everyone's having. A year ago we'd been to multiple camps and saw the kids, and then we would have saw them in games. Now we know the kids, we know their names, we've talked to their coaches, we got the names, but haven't saw them play as much, coached them at camps and all that. No one's got to do it, so we're not at a disadvantage. We still feel as if we're ahead of the game as far as that goes, but we're not where we were in the fact that we got to coach them, and that's the biggest worry is not the contacts and being able to recruit or get them, but the evaluation process. Last year when we passed on a kid, we're like, no, we had him at 2 camps and he's not a guy we want here. Or when we really went after a kid and maybe no one else really wanted him, we were like, no, he's our kind of guy. We've had him at camp and we know a little bit about him. And then plus, I mean, you talked about the 7-4 season. I think one of the biggest parts of the season last year was the amount of kids we had here for game day visits. It's an awesome game day atmosphere. We had a bunch of kids here. Boy, I like to see the percentage of kids that we signed from those games. I don't think we got a kid who didn't come to a game day visit. So those were huge for us a year ago, and we're not going to have those this year. But we're not going to let that deter us. We're going to keep working hard at it, and we're going to have a good recruiting class, and that is just kind of what it is. We're going to keep working at it. As far as us preparing, we're working with the kids. We're doing study halls, the virtual class stuff. If a kid has a virtual class, we're bringing him in. He's doing class with us, so we're actually probably more in their studies. You like to think you're on it, but you're not on it because you're preparing for games.
Right.
This year here, we don't have an excuse. We're on it as much as you can be. If a kid doesn't do well this year, we're going to have to reevaluate that guy.
Let's talk a little bit about, because it's as difficult as it is for us as administration and as coaches. Let's talk a little bit about the mental state for the players, because as a coach and as a player, it's all about flow and schedule, and those players are in a routine and they're so used to that.
Yeah.
But with the fall, being postponed, that's already been disrupted. So what are you all doing as a staff and strength and conditioning to kind of help those players kind of get on a schedule and kind of be like, hey, this is what we're doing, and let's take it one step at a time?
It was really my biggest worry. I mean, if I'm being honest, coming into this season, my biggest worry was guys are accustomed to, routines. The thing that is unique for us is our roster is so young. The kids who are having the hardest time with it is really our seniors, and fortunately or unfortunately, there's not a lot of those guys. So we got a few kids who are graduating in mid-year. We got a few others that are graduating in May, and us trying to plot out their future has been the hardest part. But there's only like 8 or 9 seniors, right? And some of those guys will stay and play in 2021. Some will graduate and move on. The young kids, it's been kind of easy because we've attacked it as, hey, listen, pretend today's February 10th.
Right.
And you're going to the weight room. They've got a schedule. Monday and Wednesday they lift at this time in this pod with these guys, and Friday they lift this time with this pod and these guys. And Tuesday, Thursday, this is the time you get your skill development. This is when study hall is. And we've kept them pretty busy with the schedule. It's awkward at times, you know, and it's different because we got to be a little bit more open-minded as coaches. If a kid's late for something, you know, or a kid can't be there, and it's like, well, he had to go, you know, he got random COVID tested today, or he's getting his temperature taken now, you know, and the shuttle's running different, you know, it's just, we've had to take some deep breaths as coaches and go, okay, listen, this is a different time, we got to handle it. Hopefully soon it goes back to normal and we can be, you know, a little bit more with them. Not that we've given them much rope, but you get the idea.
Right.
We've been keeping them pretty busy.
So now we've kind of got the football out of the way. Now we're going to get to know Coach Kellar.
Yeah,
in this segment, okay?
Yeah.
So obviously everybody knows, played football, been around football,
Yeah.
been almost every offensive coach you could think of. But if there was one sport that you could be a head coach of, what would it be?
Oh, it'd have to be basketball.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's when I grew up, there were 3 seasons. There was, you know, everyone thought there were 4 seasons. To me, there was 3 seasons. There was a baseball season, basketball season, and a football season. And that's kind of the way we looked at it. I got 3 sons. You know, I got 4 nephews, and I think we all kind of actually hold on 4. I got more. I got 5 nephews. You know, we all kind of look at it that way. I got a young one who just snuck up on me. But yeah, so I mean, basketball would be the game. You know, I mean, we love intramurals.
Right.
We love playing noon basketball, and don't play as much as we used to. Probably not as good as we used to be. But yeah, very much love basketball.
So if you're sitting down on, let's just say, a random Saturday night, and let's say the NFL, NBA, or MLB's on, which one are you tuning in?
I'm probably watching. It depends who it is. Probably watching the NFL. I mean, last night. Or was it 2 nights ago? I think Navy BYU was on, and I watched a little bit of that, and then but then I turned it to the Laker game because I'm a Laker fan. And I'm not really. It's weird because I grew up a Laker fan, but not a LeBron guy.
Right.
You know, more Magic and Kareem in that group, and then obviously Kobe was the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I'm probably watching the NFL game, but if it's not a team that I'm interested in, then the problem with football that I have is I can't just watch it as a fan. I watch it and I see, you know, the flankers on the ball and this guy's. I mean, I just.
You're always in the process of coach mode. When you're
well,
watching
especially when we, you know, my wife laughs about it because we'll break down tape all day on Sunday, and you're watching. Okay, where's that 3 technique? What's their blitz? And then you go home that night and you're watching the Steeler Patriot game, and you're like, oh, they're in this front. You just have a hard time turning it off.
Pizza, hot or cold?
Hot. But I could eat it cold. It doesn't matter. Italian. It's all good. Yeah.
So this is kind of unique because everybody that's been around the MEC knows, you know, the last couple of years has been such a staple of having Thursday night games, and a lot of the institutions, a lot of the players like it. But your personal Thursday night games or Saturday afternoon?
I mean, I'm probably more traditionalist. I mean, if it was up to me, every game in the world would be Saturday at 1 o'clock. I like the Thursday night games. If I was commissioner of the league, which I am not, don't want to be, I would have all Thursday night games. You know, so it was kind of funny you asked me because me and my son were laughing about that. I said, you know, if you're really to promote your league, Thursday night's the way to go. But if you want to have your life better, you want to practice 7 days a week. Saturday's the way to go.
Social media aspect, Twitter or Facebook?
Probably more Twitter because it's short and sweet, but and I play with Facebook and I do all that stuff just as much as probably anybody. But I mean, it's really, you know, I tell my kids all the time, get off that stuff. It's poison, you know. But the problem with it that I got is it's so instant feedback. You know, I see more like the last probably 6 or 7 years, I've saw more problems with kids worrying about every little thing in their life, and I laugh about it, but it's really not funny. Is, you know, if I went 1 for 3 or 0 for 4 in Little League, maybe 2 kids in school the next day knew something about it.
Right.
Now it's immediate. And, you know, I saw my son go through playing quarterback and his brothers and some of the stuff they had to deal with just, I'm like, some guy sitting in a room, he couldn't throw a ball up and hit it, and you're worried about what he says, you know. Right. So it's all junk, but probably more Twitter.
Okay. And the last one, everybody knows you're an avid golfer.
Yeah. It didn't used to be, but that's really caught on as I got older.
Best club in your bag. If you pulling out your club now, obviously I know, different from where you're at, but best club, most comfortable club you feel when you're out there.
Probably an 8-iron. Probably would be, you know, if I get within that range. It's weird because I feel good with the wedge, but the 9's a little shaky. But the 8's always treated me right.
Okay. All right, Coach. Well, once again, thanks for sitting down and chatting with us this evening.
Appreciate it. You know, normally we'd be watching tape right now. This has been a nice little change for me. So thanks for having me.
All right, Pioneer fans, that's going to do it for episode 1 of the Pioneer Coaches Show. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 6 p.m. You can get the show on multiple platforms, our YouTube channel, our Blue Frame widget, as well as links to Facebook and Twitter. For myself, Coach Kellar, Pioneer Media, we will see you all next week.